You know that feeling when you open your banking app and for a split second, before the number even loads, your stomach just braces itself? That flinch. That tiny internal wince right before the screen refreshes. If you know that feeling, this video is for you. Because there's a number where that flinch quietly disappears. And it's a lot smaller than you'd think. It's $10,000. Not 100,000, not a million. 10,000. And once you cross it, something strange happens that almost nobody talks about. Let's get into it. Quick story first, because I think you'll recognize this one immediately. Somebody texts you, "Hey, can you Venmo me 20 for the Uber?" Totally normal request. Except your brain doesn't process it like a normal request. It runs a full financial audit in about half a second. Rent's out on the 5th, that direct debit for the phone bill hits Thursday, and now there's a mystery $20 just casually asking to leave the building. You send it. Obviously you send it. But there's this half-second calculation that happens every single time, and it's exhausting in a way that doesn't even register as exhausting anymore because you've just always done it. That calculation is what disappears at $10,000. Not the request, the audit. Here's the first thing that changes. And it's not your bank balance, it's your sleep. Before $10,000, most people are running what I like to call financial whack-a-mole. The car needs new brakes, so the emergency fund, if you even have one, gets wiped out. Then rent goes up $50 because apparently that's just allowed now. Then your dog eats something he definitely should not have eaten, and suddenly you're having a very tense conversation with a vet about payment plans. Every emergency isn't just annoying, it's existential. It threatens the whole structure. At $10,000, that stops. Not because life stops throwing curveballs, it absolutely does not, but because you finally have a shock absorber. The car repair is still annoying. It's just no longer a 5-alarm fire that ruins your month. That's the first shift. You go from surviving each surprise to just shrugging at it. Here's the second thing that changes, and this one's a bit funnier. How you talk about money. Before 10K, money talk is either silence or panic. Somebody mentions splitting a bill and you do that quick mental gymnastics routine. Can I afford this? Do I say something? Do I just order water and pretend I'm not that hungry? After 10K, you don't actually spend differently, not right away. But you stop performing poverty. You order what you actually want off the menu. Not because you're rich, you're absolutely still not rich. But because $40 stopped feeling like a structural threat to your existence. Britain, this applies to you too, by the way. It's the same flinch at the Tesco self-checkout when the total's higher than expected. 10 grand, or the pound equivalent, buys you the exact same sigh of relief on either side of the Atlantic. Now here's where it gets interesting, because this is the part nobody warns you about. There's a trap waiting right around this exact number. Financial psychologists actually have a term for it. It's sometimes called premature relaxation. The second people hit their first real cushion, a lot of them start treating it like the finish line instead of the starting line. The upgraded phone, the slightly nicer apartment, the subscription you forgot you were even paying for, sitting there quietly draining $40 a month for an app you opened twice. $10,000 is not made it money, it's I finally get to start money. And confusing those two is exactly how people bounce between broke and almost okay for their entire lives. Always one setback away from square one. Let's talk about the third shift because this one is honestly the most underrated. How other people treat you. This sounds shallow, but stick with me. When you're constantly one paycheck from disaster, it leaks out. Not because you're announcing it, nobody's doing that. But because desperation has a smell, metaphorically speaking. You say yes to things you shouldn't. You avoid conversations about money with your partner because there's genuinely nothing productive to say. You laugh a little too hard when your friend suggests a trip you can't actually afford. At $10,000, that leak stops. You can say, "Let me check my budget," instead of panicking internally. You can say "not this month" without your voice cracking. And weirdly, people respect that steadiness. Confidence, it turns out, not about how much you have. It's about not being one bad week away from unraveling. Okay, fourth shift, and this is the one that actually compounds into everything else. Your relationship with time changes. Before 10K, you're thinking in days. Can I make it to Friday? Will this check clear before that direct debit goes out? Life is a countdown clock, constantly resetting. After 10K, your brain starts doing something it's never done before. It starts thinking in years. Suddenly, you're not just Googling how to survive this month. You're Googling things like index funds, high-yield savings accounts, whatever the UK equivalent of a Roth IRA is called this week. You're not doing this because you suddenly became a finance nerd overnight. You're doing it because, for the first time, your brain has enough oxygen to think past next Tuesday. That's the real trick behind the $10,000 rule. It's not really about the money. It's about what the money frees up in your head. Every ounce of mental energy that used to go toward, how do I not drown this week, suddenly gets reassigned toward, okay, what do I actually want? Before we go further, let's be honest about what $10,000 does not do. Because I don't want this to sound like a magic trick. It doesn't erase debt. If you've got student loans or credit card balances sitting there with interest quietly compounding against you, 10K sitting in a savings account next to that debt isn't victory. It's just a slightly awkward stalemate. It doesn't buy you a house, especially not in this market, on either side of the Atlantic. And it definitely doesn't stop your aunt from asking when you're going to settle down and buy property at Thanksgiving, or your gran from asking the UK equivalent at Christmas dinner. What it does is smaller and, honestly, more important. It buys you options. It buys you the ability to say no to a bad job without panicking. It buys you a plane ticket home for a family emergency without financing it. It's not a finish line. It's just the first checkpoint where the game stops feeling rigged against you. Now, let's talk numbers for a second, because this part genuinely surprises people. A recent study on American households found that more than half, over 50%, are living paycheck to paycheck right now. Not people who are unemployed, people with jobs, sometimes good jobs, the kind of jobs that look completely fine from the outside while the inside is one flat tire away from collapse. Which means that flinch we talked about at the very beginning, that's not a personal failing. That's most of the country. You are not bad with money for feeling that. You're just early. So how do you actually get to $10,000 if you're not there yet? Here's the unsexy truth. It's rarely one big win. Nobody's usual path here is a lottery ticket or a crypto miracle. It's almost always boring, repetitive, slightly annoying automation. A set amount, move the day you get paid, before your brain gets a vote. Not because you're disciplined, a discipline is overrated and unreliable, but because you remove the decision entirely. The people who get to 10K aren't the ones who wanted it more. They're the ones who stopped negotiating with themselves every single payday. And here's the twist to end on, because I think this is the part that actually matters. $10,000 was never about the number on the screen. It was about the version of you that gets to exist once that flinch disappears. The version that sleeps a little easier, talks about money without shame, thinks in years instead of days. That version of you isn't waiting on some distant someday when you're finally good with money. They show up the exact week your account crosses that number. And honestly, they've probably been ready this whole time. And look, I'm not saying $10,000 fixes your whole life. It won't fix your situationship. It won't make your landlord respond to emails faster. And it definitely won't make your group chat stop arguing about where to eat. But it will do one very specific, very quiet thing. It'll make the next curveball feel like an inconvenience instead of a catastrophe. And honestly, at this point in the economy, that's basically a superpower. If you want more of this, real, unfiltered breakdowns of what money actually does to your brain and your life, not just spreadsheets and jargon, hit subscribe and stick around.